folks. Well, I'm going to get started since we have so much that we want to chat about today, and I think more people will just trickle in. But thanks everyone for being here for, I believe, the second installment in this fall series of storytelling and practice. We're super excited to have Kristal with us for filmmaking and podcast as liberation. Um, just a few norms as we get started. We are recording the workshop, so all people who've registered will get a link to the video so they can watch. Or so if you have to, leave in the middle or anything, no worries. You'll be able to watch the full conversation. If you need automated captions, they're available in the toolbar at the bottom of your Zoom window. You can chat me directly if you are having any problems with that. Normally when we are together in person, we would do a late acknowledgement, but since we're all scattered in different places over Zoom, we encourage people to introduce themselves, say where you're based, acknowledge the Indigenous land you're on, which you can see at native-land.ca. So in the chat, you can include that introduction of your location, as well as any orgs or schools or other programs you're affiliated with, and anything else you'd like to share. So we love to get to introduce to people through the chat. You could use the chat box throughout the workshop to share any reflections that you have or questions. We are going to try to have about 10-15 minutes at the end of the hour for Q&A as well. So I know a lot of folks here might be familiar with Voice of Witness. I know we might have some new folks as well. So just as a quick intro, our organization, Voice of Witness, also known from our initials VOW, we are an organization focused on the transformative power of storytelling, and we really believe in advancing human rights by amplifying the voices, the stories, the reflections of people who are directly impacted by and also fighting against injustice. So we really believe in listening to the lived experience of people who have directly experienced different human rights and social justice issues, really flipping the script that you normally see in mainstream media, where there's a lot of, commentary about a group of folks in a community, but rarely by that community. Really seeing the folks who share their stories with us, we call them our narrators, really positioning our narrators as the experts, which they are. And we do our work through a number of different programs. We have our oral history book series. We have over 22 books in our series right now, each focusing on a different social justice issue, including migration and displacement, as well as the criminal justice system in the US. We also have an education program where we bring these different oral history resources, how to do an oral history project in your community, how to learn from our books. We bring those to classrooms all across the US. We also have a community partnership program where we partner with other nonprofits, other community groups, and advocacy groups who are doing direct service on behalf of our narrator communities. And we collaborate to work on storytelling projects together and really make that link between storytelling and advocacy. We love working with people. So if you're, curious at all about learning more about what we do or want to see if there's a way that we could partner together, please reach out to us. We'll drop our contact information at the end of the session. So we love hearing from folks and getting to work with you all. So, oral history is at the heart of what we do. Just as this is kind of our wheel of showing all the different applications. There's just so many, elements to why we think this first person narrative oral history is so important. And I'm excited to hear Kristal and Fanny talk about it more today to dive into that in Kristal's specific mediums. But it's, for folks who might be newer to it, it is really such a powerful tool that can be applied, like we said, to education, to changing narratives across the country, to engaging in ethical storytelling that really puts the narrator first and centers their agency, but also it's a tool for community building, building connections and relationships, and of course for advocacy, by being moved by people's stories and wanting to see change in our world. So no matter what kind of work you do or what kind of project or scale you're working at, we really think oral history can be a meaningful tool for anything that you're doing. So today I'm excited to mostly take a back seat and listen to this conversation between Fanny and Kristal. So first of all, I'm Ella Banerjee. I use she, her pronouns. I'm the community partnership manager at Voice of Witness. I'm based in Ohlone Land, also known as Berkeley, California. So really excited to be here. And I'm excited to introduce Fanny and Kristal, who will be the main folks chatting today. So I'm going to read their official intros, but also let them say hi and say where they're calling from. So first off is my amazing colleague, Fanny. Fanny Garcia is the editorial program manager at VOW, and she's also an independent oral historian working on immigration narratives. When not collaborating on and marking up manuscripts or teaching and scouting projects and partnerships, Fanny is tending to her array of indoor plants, one of which you can see behind her. So, Fanny, do you want to say hi and say where you're calling from?
Hello, everyone. I'm calling in from Lenapehoking, which is now known as Harlem, New York City, not too far from where Kristal is right now. And I'm excited to be here today to join you and to speak with Kristal, whose work I really admire, even before we started working together. So, thank you all for joining us.
Thanks, Fanny. So with our Storyteller in Practice series that we've been doing over the last few seasons here at Voice of Witness, it allows us to have a very special guest speaker, someone who's in our community, someone who we admire, maybe someone we've collaborated with, and really be able to have just a deep dive conversation about the work they do, what influences them, what's on their mind, what are they thinking about, ahead, as it's a very interesting time to say the least in terms of cultural memory and media and stories. So we're really excited for this storytelling practice session to have Kristal as our guest. So Kristal Sotomayor is a documentary filmmaker, journalist, and curator based in Philadelphia and Pittsburgh. Drawing inspiration from their Peruvian heritage, Kristal's community-based work practice focuses on Latinidad, immigration, and belonging. They practice transformative filmmaking that humanizes and validates the lived experience of underrepresented communities. To that end, Kristal founded the queer BIPOC owned and operated media production company Sotomayor Productions, which works as the intersection of investigative journalism and documentary filmmaking to advance the portrayals of Latinx and queer communities. Kristal, it's so great to have you here today. I'll pass it to you if you want to say hi and say where you're calling from.
Hi, it's so good to talk to everyone. I'm calling from Lenape Land in Philadelphia, so it's good to see everyone. Very excited. Thank you
Yeah,
so
thanks for
much.
being here.
Yeah.
All right. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to Fanny to dive into this conversation.
Thank you so much, Ella. You always do such a great job of introducing the program and all of us as well. Kristal, there's no mystery around me being a huge fan of your work. I first saw your work when I went to Queer New Voices in New York City at the LGBTQ Center, and I fell in love with one of your films. And then when you applied for Storyteller Initiative, I was like, I know that name from somewhere, and I put two and two together, and so it was just kismet that we ended up working together. Um, and it's a pleasure to have you here today. We've been working together as part of the Storyteller Initiative that Val created and launched this year. But today we're just going to focus on your work, and I'll ask you only one question about the Storyteller Initiative. And I'm particularly struck by how you managed all the different aspects of your creative output. You're a documentary filmmaker, you're a journalist, you're a curator. You also run festivals, like you have full-time jobs or one job or many jobs. So you do a lot. And every time I see your name in the world, it's attached to like a fellowship or Sundance or something else. And I just want to know, how do you get it all done? How do you manage?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know either. I think very good time management skills. I have a very good, very busy, insane Google Calendar. So that helps me stay on track, for sure. And I also always have a team. So behind like every film that I make, even the podcast that we're working on, there's a team of people that will help support my vision for the project. So I'm also very thankful for them because they definitely keep me on track. They're like, Kristal, what are the edits? Like, where are we at? What do you need next? So I have to say, when you work with other people, it does hold you accountable, but it also makes like the films that you work on so much stronger because they add in like their special, unique like insight into it.
Yeah. You must also be a really great delegator. Like, I
Oh,
can't do
I
that.
try
So
to
you
be.
do.
I
You
try to
try
be.
to be.
Well, it's good to know like what your limitations are. So for like I did end up making like a narrative short and I knew like I never worked with actors before. So when I was picking the team, I made sure that the producer was an actor who knew how to work with actors very, very well. And I was like, you need to work with the actors and then come back to me when you have something to show, like as you're rehearsing, because I knew that was like something that made me very nervous and I was kind of self-conscious about. And so for me, like whenever I work on something, I'm like, what do I not know? And how can I bring someone who can like have that expertise because I don't know everything.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's amazing. So I'm going to start with a question for you about Storyteller Initiative, which is a fellowship that was developed at Voice of Witness to help foster the work of emerging oral historians and other storytellers. And this was in 2024, 2025 was our inaugural season. We don't know if we're going to have another fellowship in 2026. We hope so, if we get some funding for it. It was a fellowship that provided some financial support, but also some training in oral history. So tell us, what did the Storyteller Initiative do for you, and why do you think fellowships like SI are so important for emerging artists?
Mhm. Well, I have to say, like, I didn't train in oral history. I didn't really learn about it in college. It was kind of through community media that I was like, this sounds really interesting. But truly, like, through the Storyteller Initiative, I was like, wow, I really love oral history. It's actually really wonderful. We were reading, some articles about like oral history theory and kind of how to interview to do an oral history. And I was like, I'm actually practicing a lot of these things without knowing that that's kind of like, the structure and the thinking behind it, like that oral history structure. And so I've really come to value oral history a lot. And I see it now in a lot of the work that I do and a lot of the things that I admire, but it's not called that, you know? I feel like that's what I've come to like acknowledge the most out of this is that there's oral history all around us, but people don't always call it that, you know? And so I think that's what's really valuable. And it's been incredible to learn from you so much and from Sarah as well. Um, and also from Fanny, who's the other fellow. And we've also had incredible mentors. Like my mentor is Jonathan Menjivar, who is an amazing podcaster who made the podcast Classy, which you should definitely listen to. And he's given me so much like advice on the podcast that I'm working on as part of this fellowship, which is about how water is just being taken over and controlled by corporations, and it's making it so hard for everyday regular people to have access to clean, affordable water. And so, it's something that's very personal to me because my mom's water was privatized and her water bill went from $30 to $300 a month. And so, being able to make this podcast, it's been really like a long time coming and something super important. And so very thankful for the whole fellowship experience.
And why do you think fellowships like Storyteller Initiative are important for storytellers like you and others?
Yeah, I mean, the reason why this presidential administration has been attacking the arts so much, cutting federal funding to the arts, trying to demolish the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, is because they are scared of things like this fellowship, things that will get knowledge and information out there in a way that people will be receptive to. And so right now, all of this funding is being cut and nobody at the federal level wants to fund this stuff because it's what's challenging the norms and what's challenging their policy, and what's getting information, to people in a digestible way. So I think these sorts of fellowships are crucial. I mean, right now, a lot of people's, in terms of my project, a lot of people are facing issues where they can't afford anything. They can't afford any utilities. They can't afford, even rent. And so having like different projects that speak to this crisis, that speak to the legislation that has caused all of this, to speak to like the politicians and name the politicians and the corporations that are causing issues at a local and at a national level scares this presidential administration. So, yes, this fellowship is so important right now.
Thank you so much, Crystal. And I'm going to have you stay a little bit on this water privatization project that you've been working on, because I feel it's really important. So, for folks who don't know about it, tell us why it is that your mom's electric bill, utility bill went from 30 through 300, and how is it connected to water privatization where she lives?
Yeah, so I live in Pennsylvania. My family lives in Western Pennsylvania and kind of like a more rural area because I live in the city in Eastern Pennsylvania. But basically in Pennsylvania there are two corporations called American Water and Aqua, which is now called essentially utilities. But those two corporations are buying up locally owned water and sewer systems because it's a commodity that everybody needs. You cannot live without access to fresh, clean water. And actually, CPS will come and, take away your entire family if you don't have running water. So it's something that's a vital resource that everyone needs, that everyone honestly must have. And that means that it's something that we can increase the price on. So in Pennsylvania, there's this law called Act 12 that was passed in 2016 that allowed for the sale of public water utilities by corporations and allowed them to get back a fair market value, which means that they can make a lot more than what they paid for by that purchase. And so, because of that, where there is greed and the opportunity for greed, people will prevail. So a lot of water and sewer systems have been purchased across the entire state, and it's really it's a crisis. It's a public health crisis. People can't access clean water. People can't afford it. There's also the issue of maintenance, of which corporations are not maintaining things. So some townships have potholes all over the roads from sewer lines that, should be replaced but are not being replaced. So, on a national level, these two corporations are trying to also expand, right? They're trying to also acquire water systems in New Jersey and Delaware, and they're succeeding. And so the podcast is a way to, talk about how this issue impacts people on a local and very personal level, and what can we do to stop this, right? If it's happening to your community. Um,
And Crystal, for this project, why did you pivot from doing a film? Because I can see it as a film as well, to podcasting, to a podcast series or
mhm,
episodes.
mhm. Well, I would say that the main reason why we changed is because of urgency. Making a film about this topic would take much longer than it would to make a podcast. Um, and there's just way too many people that are quite honestly suffering right now because they can't afford their water bill. They're trying to decide between water or groceries, water or gas to drive my kids to school. Like it's a crisis. It's a real problem.
Wow.
Mhm.
Thank you so much. I want to give you enough time to talk about your films because they also are really important. And one of the films that is really kind of, you filmed it a while ago, but it's very much tied to what's happening now with ICE raids and the immigrant communities around the country. We have some slides that we'd love to show you, like some shots of the film. Expanding Sanctuary follows the story of Linda Hernandez, an immigrant mom, right, who becomes a community leader in a campaign to end data sharing between Philadelphia police and ICE. Tell us about the story. Where did it begin? Why did you want to do this? And do the people who worked with you in the film and that you featured having any fear about having their story out there?
Yeah, so I started, trying to get connected with the immigrant rights organization that's also involved with the film called Juntos. They're based in Philadelphia. In 2017. And I was at that point like a recent college graduate. I want to make a film. I wanted to like meet the community in Philadelphia, make friends. And I had been hearing about Juntos for many years. And so I was like, okay, let me get involved. I had many conversations with Juntos about like being honest about my abilities. I was recent college graduate, it's just me, my camera. Like, I'm very interested in this. I have immigrant parents. So, I want to tell a story about the Latino immigrant community, and we'll see where it goes from there. And I was really, really honest with them. Um, and they let me into their organization. I filmed their community meetings. And there were moments in which I was told to not film or to erase things. And, it's important to also be very transparent in that I understand that they have very sensitive information that's discussed there. People's cases are being discussed. Sometimes I'll be talking to folks, filming something, and then it's like they get a phone call and someone got detained, and I have to stop filming because it's a lot of people's personal information being shared. So, I was also very forthcoming about my limitations and kind of being open about if there's things that are filmed, they can be deleted too. Um, and then just as I was starting to film, Linda, the protagonist who's holding the abolish ICE sign, she also started going to Juntos and at first she just kind of like was taking everything in, and then she slowly became more and more like active and speaking out more and like, oh, what if we go talk to the church on Sunday about this issue? Oh, what if so she really started to evolve into this like amazing leader. She really like kind of found her voice in that moment, and ended up in the film leading a protest, getting married, leading another protest in her wedding dress, which is this photo. And they ended up ending this contract that the city had to share, the city police data with ICE. So it was like a really beautiful moment. Yeah, I would say it was really lovely. I truthfully didn't think that we were gonna win in the end, but we did, and so it ended up being a very happy film.
And Crystal, did your protagonists or narrators in this film have they experienced any regret about having been featured so prominently due to the repression that's happening in throughout the country?
Yeah, I mean, so she loves the film. Like we've been showing the film at different like colleges, universities, community screenings. And every time she gets asked this question, like, are you scared that your face is in this, that like you're being outspoken, that you're doing this community leadership and community organizing and speaking at protests? And every time she's just like, well, they want me to be silent. Like, that's exactly what they want is like to be so fearful that you will not speak out. And for her, it's important to speak out. It's important to be present and to put herself out there and to be that example for her daughters, especially. Her oldest daughter, Ashley, was also like a leader through Juntos, like a youth leader, and is now in college and keeps working with Juntos. Her younger daughter is also involved in the Juntos youth leadership program. So, you know, there is always that concern, of course. But she always just says like I want to speak out. Like I prefer to speak out than to be quiet, to be silent fully. So um yeah.
What a powerful person. Thank you so much for sharing. Um, and we're going to go through a few more of the slides because I really want people to know about your work. This is the film that I fell in love with that I first saw of your work. Don't Cry for Me, All You Drag Queens. And when I left the theater after seeing this film, I wanted to host a wedding for myself, regardless of whether I had a chambelán or not. So, tell us about this film and how you got involved and why.
Yeah, so this is a film that, I luckily like I didn't have to seek it out. I was actually invited to submit like a proposal for a film through Outfest and Traverse 32. And it was supposed to be, using the archival materials from the New Hope Celebrates archive, and the New Hope Celebrates is the LGBTQ organization in New Hope, Pennsylvania. And so the film is set in New Hope, Pennsylvania, using the archives. And when I was looking, you can check on the newhopecelebrates.org website, I think it is, that they have the archive there. And I was looking through photos, like trying to see what really captured me. And then I saw I don't think it was this photo, but a very similar photo of Mother Cavalucci, who is, in the amazing dress, getting married to a cute young man in town. And I asked questions about that photo. I was like, what is this? Like, how did we do this? And so Mother Cavalucci is a legendary drag queen. She lived a very long and fulfilling life, passed away in early 2000s, and in the 70s and 80s, she would do drag weddings as fundraisers for the LGBTQ community in New Hope. And New Hope is kind of like a queer art, like a queer haven, because they used to have these amazing gay bars that were also resorts. So it'd be like the gay bar in a hotel with a pool, with like a piano. And so everybody would be singing along to like show tunes. So I've heard it was really great. They've destroyed the bars, the main bar at this point, the Raven. And it's now a parking lot. But
Wow.
there was, yeah, in the community, there was like this feeling that like, oh, we haven't had these amazing like fundraiser like events and parties. And so in the film, through discussions with like two different drag queens that are also legends in their own merit. Um, Miss Phoebe Mantrap, who is a former reigning Miss New Hope and Miss Pumpkin. They both, I was talking to them, they're both in the film, and they were like, "Oh, it'd be great to do a party." And I was like, "Let's do a party." And so basically we tried to recreate this sort of garden party, outdoor wedding for the community where folks could talk about and reflect on Mother Cavalucci. And it doesn't really show up in the film, but someone was like, brought a toaster and they were like, this is one of the gifts that was given to Mother Cavalucci as part of one of her weddings. And I brought it here today because she gave it to me all those years ago. She had like a closet full of little toaster ovens that people would give her. So
Wow.
yeah, it was really lovely. It was a beautiful experience. Like everyone had so much fun. Yeah, it was really great.
Yeah, she would host these, and every wedding she hosted, there was a different
Mhm.
groom, right?
Yeah, there was a different groom and there was also a different outfit. So this is
Yeah.
very like My Fair Lady inspired outfit, but in one of her outfits, she had this incredible wig that had a bird, like a live bird inside of it. Like it was like a cage with the
Wow.
bird. And they also like ended up building all these extra props for the pool. Like there was like a stage over the pool connecting one side to the other so she could get married in the middle of the pool. So it was really, it's a drag queen wedding, so it was amazing. It was like the best wedding you'll ever see. Um,
It's like such a mixture of radical joy and activism, right? Because she was also raising money for the local LGBTQ community.
yeah, so it was great. I've heard they were wonderful. The photos looked amazing.
Yeah.
So I wanted
Uh,
to make it.
Thank you so much for sharing. And the next one is Las Cosas que Brillan. This is a recent film that you
Mhm.
developed. Tell us.
Yeah, we just premiered this August. It's my first narrative short. It's about a trans Latina mermaid kind of finding herself in this world that is, fully handmade and constructed. You kind of can't fully tell from the photo, but there's moving waves. She has like little like a seagull and a clam that are her friends, like these little puppets that are her friends. Um and we have an underwater set in addition to this like beach set. And I kind of see it as like kind of a story about like kind of being yourself in the world and maybe not always being received as well as you wanted to, but still wanting to be who you are regardless. Um, so yeah, that's the film. Very excited about it. Hopefully it'll be showing more places very soon. Mhm.
Well, in the next slide, I uploaded the trailer for it, and I don't know if we'll be able to play it, but we can try.
Is the audio working?
No,
Okay, let me try now.
I think you may have to,
Wait 1 second.
okay, no problem. It just reminds me, I just finished watching the Juan Gabriel documentary, which is speaks to so many people, Juan Gabriel's story as an artist, and never telling his audiences whether he was queer or not, or gay or not. It was such a powerful statement about how it didn't matter, right? Because
Mhm.
his art is what mattered. And I just feel like this film, Las Cosas que Brillan, is also about that, like finding, being so strong that you don't need to explain yourself to other people,
Mhm.
and finding the community that is gonna espouse that kind of power.
Mhm.
I think I fixed it, so hopefully it'll work now.
I was born deep in the ocean's core. Only the
Sorry.
strongest beams of light make their way to us.
Don't let the light tempt you. It's dangerous.
Awesome. It reminds me of like magical realism and futurism and Black culture. Tell us why you wanted to make this type of film after working on documentary and investigative journalism for a while.
I mean, I had always had in my mind like this story about a mermaid who encounters a conquistador. Like that was just like in my mind for so long. I wrote something when I was in like I wrote like a play, a script for a play when I was in college about this. This was like one of the moments in the play, like one of the acts, I guess, in the play. Um, and it's always stuck with me. And so I was very, very thankful to Black Star um, for, being accepted into their filmmaker lab and, being given the resources to make the film. And I just knew going into it, as I mentioned, it's my first time working with actors. I'm really nervous, like, and in thinking about the story, I was like, realistically, if I'm gonna make something, and it is based on, a play, I want it to be in one space. I don't want to deal with a set in which I have to like go to this house and then tomorrow I go to that house and then the following day another house. I'm like, where's the bathroom at? Like that was like a main big question for me. Where's the bathroom at? So instead, I was like, I want it to be a fully constructed set inside one studio, and we'll go from one set to the next set, and that's it. Like it, I will be in one place. I don't have to think too much about the other factors, like, how am I gonna relight this thing for like it was very contained in one space, and I just felt like if it's in one space, that's one less factor for me to think about. I don't have to think about, oh my gosh, like you know, there's cars outside of this house and there weren't cars yesterday and like continuity, things like that. So, it was my, idea to be like, I want to build a whole set. It's very challenging, it's very expensive, it's very time consuming to do that. But that's why I brought on people that know this world better than me. So, like in the logos at the end was like Maestro Filmworks, who basically line produced and produced like helped me produce the entire film and did so much of the post supervision for post production and ended up like putting together the final film so that I can, submit it to Black Star. Like and they also have an incredible studio which we used called Symphony Studio. And then there was also Big Howl in the credits, and they designed the entire artistic aesthetic, like art aesthetic in the film. Every set that you see, the costume, um, the puppets, they puppeteered everything. Even you couldn't see it that well, but in the opening shot of the film is the mermaid swimming into the frame, swimming into her like underwater world. And I had no idea how the swimming was going to happen until Big Howl was like, what if we put them on ergonomic chairs and someone puppeteered them across the stage? And then we had someone else with a different version of the tail we see here at the end of the mermaid on a stick, and they puppeteer the tail so it flaps behind them. And my God, like I could have never thought of that. There's also like shadow puppets of the mermaids swimming underwater because I was like, how do we make them swim on a set? Well, they brought that into it. So very, very thankful for the people that collaborated on this film with me because I wrote it and it was great on paper, but to try to like make it come to life, it really took a lot of people. There were people moving the waves that you see behind the Conquistador. Um, there are, pu like a puppeteer moving the mouth of the clam and making the seagull fly. So really, I'm very thankful for my team. That's the only way that film was possible. I'm telling you, like as the person who directed it, wrote it, and produced a little bit of it, like it was like the majority other people's amazing support and help and knowledge and expertise because what I wrote and what is made, two vastly different things.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mhm.
And to take your vision and be able to translate it so well, and to the costuming, to the colors, to everything, to tell the story is really fascinating. I can't wait to see the full length. Please keep us posted as to did you say that you screened it already in August?
Yeah, so it premiered at Black Star because, they funded the film.
Mhm.
Um, and so it's premiered at Black Star, and then we'll see where else it gets shown at some
Okay.
point. We'll see. Yeah. Mhm.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Crystal. Tell us about you as a queer Latinx filmmaker. How does who you are and your background factor into the work that you make?
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, um, like the more that I see all of my films together, the more I'm like, every single story is about like mother-daughter, mother-son stories. So I would say my family and my mom in particular has had a lot to do with every single film that I make. Every film basically has a mom in it in some way and their connection to their child. Whether it's a drag queen that's a mom and her children, or like the mom in Expanding Sanctuary, or there's a mermaid mom in Las Cosas que Brillan who warns her daughter, don't go out too far, don't go into the light above us. And so I would say like is like relevant in every single one of my films. And you know, I would say the topics that I also pick, like if it's Latino, immigrant, queer, there's a mom in it. I'm like, this is my story. I love this story. Um, so I mean, I truthfully I wouldn't feel like I needed to make these films if it wasn't for who I am as a person and not seeing stories that reflect my experiences and like the family that I grew up with and um you know the queer mermaid that I aspire to be. So I would say it impacts everything that I make. I wouldn't make it if I didn't have passion for it. So
I
yeah.
love that. The queer mermaid that you want aspire to be. Crystal, what is it about the mother role that inspires you and motivates you so much?
I think I just really love my mom. Honestly, I just I think especially like when I think back to Expending Sanctuary, I'm like, yes, it was a film about immigration and about changing legislation and, a great campaign and someone becoming a leader. But at the end of the day, for me, it's like a mom fighting hard, fighting with everything she has to keep her family together and to give her daughters a better life. And so I feel like that was my mom. And so I relate to it a lot. So that's why I love stories with moms. I'm making even more films and they all have moms, and it's kind of, it's really, really funny. Yeah.
Shout out to mom. Thank
Yes.
you so much. Um, Tell us about some of the lessons that you've learned as a filmmaker and now aspiring podcaster. What has been the most challenging and what have been some of the greatest achievements?
Yeah, I think the most challenging thing is definitely, you know, in making Expanding Sanctuary, since it was my first film, like outside of my student work, I learned really fast that I can't do it all. Like there's a lot of things that I messed up majorly with Expanding Sanctuary that it's like if I had a team, it would have been a better film. And so I've learned that and I think that's like the greatest lesson I could learn as someone that wants to direct films because there's no way you can do it all. And to bring on people that are just as passionate about the story as you. I mean, truthfully, I would could not have done Las Cosas que Brillan in the time span that was necessary for the fellowship that I made it in. um, it would not have happened had it not been for all the people that I brought on, like working with Maestro Filmworks, with Big Howl, even we work with Big Picture Alliance, like a youth media arts organization, to have students come on set and like be fellows and help assist in like different like PA roles, but like in different parts of the set. And that helped, oh my gosh, like if we didn't have them, like the fellows, like I also don't think the film would have been possible. Like we needed like all these people to make it come together. And
Mhm.
what I've learned that I'm now taking into the podcast is that I have only made, films, and a film has an end, has a beginning, and it has a very clear end, right? And now that I'm making a podcast, it's a series. And so each episode can have a beginning and end, but it needs to have an end that continues into the next episode. And that for me has been the most challenging thing mentally to like flip from a film to an episodic sort of medium. And so, I'm also taking the lesson from Las Cosas que Brillan that I need a team. So we're working with Row Home Productions as you know, to help us make the trailer and the extended trailer for the podcast so we can like move forward with the project, hopefully get some distribution. finish it, like really make it be strong. But really, if I just made so many mistakes in expanding Sanctuary that I'm like, I will never again shoot, try to edit, shoot, do everything. I can't. It's just not possible. And it's not going to be a good project if I do it myself. Mhm.
Thank you so much for sharing. I just have one more question before we break for the audience to be able to ask you questions. I know that you've already engaged with a few that have asked questions in the chat, but my last question for you goes back to the title of this session today, this interview, which is um, filmmaking and podcasting as liberation. Do you think that these mediums have the potential to liberate and what does liberation mean to you and if it does?
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, for me, liberation, part of it is like education and having tools and access to a different form of like knowledge and experience. And I just feel like what's really, really beautiful about film and podcasts is that it's really digestible. Like people can like listen to a full podcast and learn about a whole different topic and story, just because of the way that it's told and the intimacy that you have with the podcaster. Um, and it really sometimes changes lives. Like I've listened to some podcasts that I'm like, wow, I'm a very different person than when I began the podcast. Um, there's so many podcasts that I felt that way about. And so I think just like making art that shows you a different way of being or a different history of the world that you never knew before, that is a form of liberation. It's a form of getting closer to liberation, in my opinion. Mhm.
I love that definition. Thank you so much, Crystal, for such an engaging conversation. And now I'd love to open it up to any audience members. There are some comments in the chat, and Ella will take over the Q&A monitoring. But this has been such an enriching conversation, and I learn from you every time I speak with you.
Yeah, thank you both so much. I feel like that was such a just especially joyful conversation talking about, you know, you know, things like protecting your narrators and looking out for them and lessons learned, but so much about the joy that you're able to kind of celebrate and put out there, whether it's like, these amazing things that people have done in the community that are celebrations or just being really creative. So thank you so much for sharing. Thank you, Fanny, for this guiding the conversation and to Crystal for sharing so much of your work. Yeah, people, please, people listening, please feel free to put questions in the chat. I see we have one here to kick us off from Caitlin. Thanks for sharing, Caitlin. They say, when you're in pre-production phase of a documentary, how do you go about finding out what the story is to be told? With your expanding Sanctuary documentary, without knowing how the campaign would end, how did you approach the story you're going to show?
Mm. Yeah, so um, I'll give you the same advice that I actually got from a mentor from Rodrigo Reyes. He tells me like you really need to know your characters like very, very well and to basically work on like a beat sheet. The thing about documentaries is that people think like because it's based on the reality or you're filming, what's actually happening in real life, that there isn't like storytelling behind it. You're just like telling me, you're just showing me the world. I mean, I think that's the sign of a good documentary if you can just kind of like suspend reality. But a documentary is really structured. It's like it's a basically like a narrative film. Like there's different acts, there's like a climax there, like you really have to structure it in such a way that will be compelling to an audience. And so really doing like a lot of writing on your topic, a lot of like asking questions, having interviews, not even like bringing a camera to that interview, but just getting coffee, talking to people. Maybe you even like record it so you can transcribe it and like make notes later. But the more that you can do in pre-production to plan out like the acts and the structure of your story, the better you're going to be when you start shooting. Because shooting is expensive. Like having the team together to shoot can cost like a lot of money. And so kind of knowing already like where the story's going, like what exactly you're gonna need to film, helps you a lot in trying to get the film done in like, a good amount of time. And Expanding Sanctuary, I was just like, I'm shooting everything. We'll see where it goes. We'll figure out in post-production. And that ended up costing like a lot of time, a lot of money because the editor has to watch everything. I'm spending all my time shooting everything. And, I missed something super important. So now I have to go reshoot that thing because, like, if I had a structure in mind before I started, I wouldn't have missed that. And now, so really, like, when you know very solidly where the story is going, things will change, of course. Things will always change. But having that kind of that plan ahead of time saves you a lot of time. And finding out what the story is to be told is going to come out of like discussions with the people that you're filming, and you writing about it a lot. Like, because sometimes the story is not being told in a very traditional manner. It's being told by like the cinematic aesthetic that you're telling the story through, you know? And sometimes it's better to not tell people in the story, like verbalize the issue. Sometimes it's just better to see someone be like very disappointed after getting a no. You get me? Like there's other ways to tell the story beyond straightforward speech and dialogue. And so when you've written out and you know what the story is, you'll be like, "Oh, if I get one shot of this poster, that will explain the entire film and I no longer need to say anything." Um, yeah. I hope this makes sense.
Super helpful.
Thanks, Crystal. So the next question we have is from Diana saying, love getting a sneak peek of your work. Question on funding for Las Cosas que Brillan. Was this fully through the fellowship? And are there any tips you have that have worked for you to secure funds? I know it's something that's, being real on a lot of our minds right now. So any tips there?
Yeah, so I mean, fundraising is the hardest part of filmmaking, to be honest. I have projects, like I have many, many projects that are 3 years into the project with 2 days of shooting or, 4 days of shooting and no money behind it. So I'm stagnant on some of these films. So I understand. For Las Cosas que Brillan, the Black Star Filmmaker Lab offered $50,000 towards making the film, and then a $12,000 like basically filmmaker stipend. So I just put all of that into the film. And we also got I think it was $3,000 small finishing grant from Scribe Video Center. Also that helped with the post-production because gets very expensive. But I would say, yeah, in terms of securing funding right now, it's really hard to apply to grants because I feel like everyone's applying to grants and people are getting like historic application numbers, like in the thousands at this point. So I would say keep applying to the grants because you don't know who's also looking at your things, looking at your projects, and that could help with the next project. But I would also say that something very important for filmmakers moving forward is to develop their own audience and to have like, access to the people that are going to be seeing their work pretty readily because they could be a potential source of funding because at this point it's so hard to get any film on like any distribution streaming platform, any film. Even if you get into Sundance and you get Academy Award winning or shortlisted, that is no longer a guarantee that you will have distribution. So being able to like self-distribute your own work, have like people that are, audience members ongoing is super, super important. Like that's what's going to help you in the long run with your career. Um,
Amazing.
Think we have time for just one more question from Myra. Do you experience barriers put forth by others, maybe funders, colleagues, etc., with intent to limit your storytelling in order to cater to white comfort? And if so, how do you navigate that and how do you ensure your work is produced on your own terms?
yeah, I mean, um, right now, I've heard a lot that like people will not fund Latino stories, immigrant stories, trans, queer stories because they're scared of the political atmosphere. So that is a real thing. Like it's actually happening. But this is why I think it's so important to like learn how to fundraise like in your network. We all hate crowdfunding. Trust me, I hate it. But being able to like know who your audience is, connect directly to your audience and say like this is a film for you. Do you want it to happen? Help me make it happen is really useful. Because sometimes people can't even can't be like, "Oh, I can give you thousands of dollars to make your film." But they can give you like a space to screen a film. They can give you like, in-kind support on, whatever, sound mix, sound design, color correction. Because that's honestly, Las Cosas que Brillan is kind of low budget. Like it was a lot of people taking a lot of pay cuts. Thank you all so much, believing in the story. Like it was, you know, we're very lucky to have gotten support from Black Star, but it was still in this era where everything is so expensive, it was still kind of not enough. Like we had to get like another grant. We had to like everybody took a pay cut. Nobody made money on the film, including me. So we all kind of do it out of love. So just make sure you own as much as possible. Like, even if you were to be given a deal in which they funded everything, but they own the film, like, is that really worth it? Like, I've been in those situations and I'm still trying to debate that as well. So I think just keep that in mind. And in terms of catering to white comfort, I mean, what I always say is that there's a channel devoted 24/7 to saying anti-immigrant, anti-Latino, anti-queer people rhetoric all day long in different mediums. Like there's movies on there, there's like news on there, there's like everything you can see. I do not need to cater to that. You already have a full channel. I will never have probably distribution for my film. My films will not be on Netflix anytime soon. Why should I make a film that will cater to the people that watch that channel? You have your channel. I don't need that channel. So, that's what I say in terms of catering to white comfort. Yeah.
Thanks, Crystal. Here, here, and I think what a great note to end on about, the power of collaborating with your community, solidarity with the community, and owning owning your art and your voice, and not you don't have to cater to other people. So, thank you so much, Crystal, for being here, for this amazing conversation. I know I found it very inspiring and just like heartening to hear about your amazing work and for giving such generous advice and inspiring advice for all of us. So thank you so much. Fanny, thank you so much for leading this great conversation. And thank you everyone here for attending. You were a great audience and asked really meaningful, lovely, reflective questions. Just a couple things. Please stay in touch with us. We have our next and final storytelling practice session next Wednesday with Fanny, who is Crystal's fellow storyteller initiative fellow. Sorry, fellow. They're really awesome as well, and it's going to be a great conversation. Again, please partner with us if you're interested in learning more about our work or want to see how we can connect. Please reach out to us. You can email me with any questions or partnership inquiries at Ella at Voice of Witness. Follow us on social media. Visit our website if you haven't already. We have lots of oral history guides and lesson plans to support the different work people are doing. And yesterday was Giving Tuesday, so if you are in a position to contribute to community orgs, we're a really small, scrappy organization, so any kind of support you might be able to consider and share with us at Val really goes a long way. But most of all, thank you all so much for joining, and hope you all have a great night. Everyone, take care and